Some observers have expressed the concern that by expanding its balance sheet, the Federal Reserve will ultimately stoke inflation. The Fed's lending activities have indeed resulted in a large increase in the reserves held by banks, and thus in the narrowest definition of the money supply, the monetary base. However, banks are choosing to leave the great bulk of their excess reserves idle, in most cases on deposit with the Fed. Consequently, the rates of growth of broader monetary aggregates, such as M1 and M2, have been much slower than that of the monetary base. At this point, with global economic activity weak and commodity prices at low levels, we see little risk of unacceptably high inflation in the near term. And indeed, we expect inflation to be quite low for some time.
Before Barack Obama leaves office, there will be a currency crisis. The U.S. dollar will collapse, and prices in this country for consumer goods are going to go ballistic, and so will interest rates. And we're going to be living in an economy with unemployment closing in on 20% and double-digit inflation and double-digit interest rates. This is economic ruin that is coming, and it's because of the very policies that you're wanting Barack Obama to pursue.
In the past few years, there's been a big debate in economic and policy circles. Do we need more austerity or more growth, more stimulus? In the past couple of weeks, a lot of people on the growth side of the equation have claimed victory. Joining me now is Larry Kudlow. He's host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC, which is our premier partner here at Yahoo Finance. Larry, I know you have some strong opinions about this. So you had Reinhardt and Rogoff. Their report got shown to have some errors in it. The EU saying maybe austerity isn't such a great idea. Do you think this is going to trickle down to U.S. policy here?
Look, let's define terms, just first of all.
Okay.
I am for government austerity. All right? I believe that a smaller government with budget cuts is pro-growth. It gives the private sector room to breathe and invest and create jobs. So I think anytime you cut government spending, as in sequester,
so which we're doing right now,
it's a tax cut.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the stock market has done so well. It absolutely loves it, and I think our economy is going to improve. I also want prosperity in the private sector. So I don't want to see you cutting back in the private sector. Should have, for example, pro-growth tax reform. We're seeing a little bit of that in Europe right now.
That's true. And it's interesting, during the campaign, maybe the one thing that President Obama and Mitt Romney agreed on was corporate tax reform.
Sometimes, yes.
And I haven't seen anything about it since the election.
No follow-through. No follow-through. And unfortunately now, with all these scandals and whatnot, I'm not that optimistic. But you're quite right. I can't think of anything that would help the private sector better than pro-growth business tax reform for both large and small businesses. And I want to say one other thing. This may surprise you. I love what they're doing in Japan.
You do?
I do. The monetary part of Japan, they were going into heavy deflation. They had to open up the monetary spigots. They had to let the currency adjust, which I call normalization. And look, they just produced a pretty good GDP, 3.5% in Q1. Right. I don't know whether that's permanent or not. Europe should do what Japan is doing on money. Europe is way too tight, the ECB. They should open up the spigots, cut their interest rates, and pour money-based money into their economy. Europe is in deep danger of deflation right now. And mea culpa for me, Ben Bernanke was right. He put the money in, and those of us who expected inflation were wrong. I was wrong. I've admitted this on the air. I wrote a column about it.
Larry Kudlow, that's the headline. Mea culpa, Ben Bernanke was right.
I give this round to Bernanke, and I think the U.S., we're not growing big, but we're going to keep the 2%, maybe 2.5% growth rate. Get us business tax cuts. That's what I want.
Okay.
To him, David, calling in from Kansas City, Missouri. David, how you doing?
Hi, Peter. Hey, I don't know. Monday, this was posted on one of your competitors' websites, an interview of Larry Kudlow by Yahoo Finance Daily Ticker Show. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But,
yeah, I've been on the Daily Ticker many times. Go ahead.
Yeah, he said, this is my mea culpa. He said, everything I criticized Ben Bernanke for is wrong. Ben Bernanke has won this fight. He said the biggest problem in Europe is that the Europeans need to adopt the Japanese model, Abenomics, I guess. He was basically just spilling his guts in favor of every Keynesian remedy that you could possibly come up with. Next time you see him, you should never let him forget this interview. I mean, you need to go check this interview out because...
Well, he's been saying that on his show. He's been saying that on his show. Yeah, he's had a major...